Once again, it's on. You know what time it is. It's time to play some toss. Welcome, everyone, to episode 68 of Toss, the Tristain on Sports Show. It is your main man, T-Squared, Tristain Thomas. Thank you all so much for joining us this week. What we got going down, we got to talk Green Bay Packers. A couple of moves were made. How do I feel about them? What are the Green Bay Packers doing about those? We'll discuss the Milwaukee Bucks. Up and down, but they're still hanging around. We got to talk to them a little bit. And then in the Toss Week, we got Super Bowl predictions, and we got some free agency moves that we'll predict for the future. But you guys know how we get things started. We get things started with the state of the state here on Toss. So let's jump right into it. Let's start off with the Green Bay Packers. Yes, their season is over. Yes, they've had exit interviews. Yes, they've cleaned out their lockers. Yes, you did, in fact, see Aaron Rodgers, the soon-to-be three-time NFL MVP, riding in the back of David Bakhtiari's truck with soggy beer cases in the back. Typical Wisconsin behavior, nothing to be alarmed of. But despite all of that, but despite the whole, and you know what, let's just get this out the way, because I wasn't even going to talk about anything offensively for the Green Bay Packers. I was not even going to say a thing about the offense. Not the wide receivers, not the running backs, not the offensive line, not the quarterback. Wasn't going to say a word about them, but I feel like I have to. There's been a bunch of nonsense being spewed, being drummed up about Aaron Rodgers and his future with the Green Bay Packers. One person says he wants a raise. Then you got another person saying, oh, the quarterback wants out. You got Matt LaFleur in his exit interview saying, you know what, like, absolutely he's coming back. He's our quarterback. To which I have to say I agree with Matt LaFleur. All of this is just drummed up hype, drummed up drama. After the NFC Championship game, did Aaron seem a little bit in his thoughts? Yes, he just lost the NFC Championship game at home. You worked so hard all season to put yourself in position to get to the Super Bowl and win it. They worked hard. They were 13-3. Got the number one seed in the NFC. The only first-round bye in the NFC this season. Home field advantage throughout the NFC playoffs. Won their divisional round game. All the cards were in your favor. You were at home. The first time you started an NFC Championship game at home. And you lost a very difficult game with some very difficult decisions, questionable decisions, as I said last week on Toss. You can go back and listen to that episode 67. Questionable decisions cost you this game. So yes, he was very pathetic. Yes, he was very thoughtful in his and very, how can we say, careful with his words, or very prophetic with his words, and very reflective with his words. I say for him to be that way after losing a tough game like that is actually pretty amazing. A lot of guys don't even have the guts to sit up there and talk. A lot of guys won't even be able to go up there and put together a coherent thought that wasn't emotional or overly emotional. But you would understand if they did. They lost a tough game. They lost the NFC Championship. They lost out on their chance to go to the Super Bowl. They lost out on their chance to win a world championship, which is what you are in this game for. So all this nonsense about Aaron Rodgers, because that's exactly what it is. Aaron Rodgers not coming back to the Green Bay Packers, Aaron Rodgers wanting a raise, Aaron Rodgers wanting out of Green Bay, all that nonsense, stop. Full stop. Now let's get back to my point. Or let's get back to what I was going to say, because I wasn't going to even talk about the offense, but I had to say that. Truthful, opinionated, and passionate here on Toss. That's what we are. The Packers made a couple of changes to the coaching staff. The first being they fired special teams coordinator Sean Meninga. That had to be done. Because you all know, all around the world, and I thank y'all for listening. Appreciate the love. Love you right back. All of you know, I said right here on Toss that special teams, I just had a gut feeling that special teams play was going to either cost Green Bay a playoff game or be a reason why they lost, a contributing factor as to why they lost the playoff game. And they were. Special teams continuously put the defense in really difficult positions against that Tampa Bay offense. It wasn't even close. I mean, continuously they had to deal with short fields because special teams couldn't do their jobs. Or maybe because apparently the coach got fired, so maybe he wasn't really doing a good job. Maybe he couldn't get those guys in the right positions. It was something that had to be done. You're talking over the last 5 seasons, this team, the Green Bay Packers, for as good as they've been over the last couple of seasons, they have been either at the bottom or near the bottom in special teams ranking for the last 5 seasons. That's not even a joke. That's not even a joke. It's unacceptable. Can you imagine if this team has a better special teams and you're constantly making the Buccaneers have to drive long fields? You can play that field position game. You got a pretty good punter. If special teams goes and handles their business with coverage, making teams drive long fields, that's an advantage. If you can actually get decent returns on kick returns and punt returns, that's an advantage. But you cannot continue to be last in the league or next to last in the league in that category. It is too vitally important, especially in a game against good defenses, which Tampa Bay has. You can't continue to put your defense in perilous positions like that. So he had to go. And I've already said that on the Toss Facebook page. That's facebook.com/TonSportsShow. That it was the right thing to do. They had no choice. He had to go. They needed a new voice. They needed new philosophies. You need more out of that part of the game. You need more out of that part of the game. So Sean Meninga is not the only one. Well, he was the only one that got fired because the next coach, which I'm sure you all know about, but if you don't, you're going to learn it here, wasn't fired. His contract just was not renewed. His contract ran out at the end of the season. Mike Pettin, defensive coordinator. He will not be back with the Green Bay Packers. Packers deciding not to renew his contract. Now, we'll talk a little bit more about him in a minute because I got some things that people may not necessarily agree with, but then I will just go and tell you that you don't watch football. So Mike Pettin's not going to be back. Special teams coordinator, look, I want somebody with a fresh mind, somebody that can get the fundamentals of special teams embedded into these guys, into their brains, get the best out of them, make sure they execute. You don't want to poo-poo that hire because you see what happens when you're next to last or last in the league in special teams. It is something that puts your defense in tough positions, and it is something that could really jumpstart your team if you get a big return, especially on a consistent basis. You get good returns, or if you even could score with special teams. So it is a really good facet to be good in on your football team. It really is. But everybody's eyes are obviously going to go to the position that directly affects a big unit of the football team, which is the defense. So now you know that Mike Pettin won't be back. You've made that decision not to renew his contract. You got to bring somebody in to interview. You got to rehire somebody. So who are the Packers bringing in? Their current defensive backs coach, Jerry Gray. You know, I don't have a problem with that, honestly, because, I mean, how he does with linebackers and everything else. Look, he may be a DB coach in name, but he has a hand in all of it. But you also have to look at the work that he's put in. Jair Alexander. He's coached up Adrian Amos and Darnell Savage. That duo right there is one of the highest rated safety duos in the National Football League. Jair Alexander is a shutdown cornerback. Jerry Gray has a hand in tutoring all of those guys. So it's not like his work is not bearing fruit. It really is. But how would he do with the entire unit? Yet to be seen. Another name, Browns defensive line coach, Chris Kiffin. And you've seen the work that he's done with Myles Garrett. That tough line for the Browns. You see they've made vast improvement. He's put in some pretty good work. Saints defensive line coach and assistant head coach Ryan Nielsen was running that defense with Dennis Allen. You took a unit from New Orleans that at one point was just porous. You're talking, that was one of the bottom of the league type defenses, and it turned around. And when it turned around and you had that Drew Brees led offense, when Drew Brees was Drew Brees, you know, I'm talking slinging the ball all over the yard with great accuracy. They made New Orleans a very, very tough team to beat. He's put in some really good work. Eagles defensive line coach and run game coordinator, Matt Burke. Eagles defensive line really may have been the heart of that Super Bowl run. Teams could not run against them. Teams really did not have a whole lot of time in the pocket against them. Had a couple of rough years dealing with some injuries. But it's not a bad decision. It's a good name to bring in and see what he thinks. And last but not least, and I say this will be the name, the big name that everybody recognizes. Well, I would say in the state of Wisconsin, but if you're paying attention, you know this name's popped up. Badgers, Wisconsin Badgers of the NCAA, their defensive coordinator, Jim Leonhard. Long-time NFL safety. Long time. Most notably with the Jets. Their AFC Championship runs, he was a guy that called the defense. He got into coaching and has the Badgers near or at the top of the defensive rankings in the nation. His name has always popped up in circles as, yeah, this guy's going to be an NFL head coach someday. You know, he's definitely going to have to take his talents to the NFL. He just has that bright defensive mind. This is the name. This is the guy. If you talk to most Packers fans, if you talk to most people in Wisconsin, then everybody's saying Packers need to hire that guy. He's young. He understands the NFL defenses. He brings a fresh perspective on things. And I'm sitting there like, look, you can't just look at the name. You have to look at the work. And I get it. Everybody has that familiarity with Jim Leonhard. He played for the Badgers very successfully. He played in the NFL very successfully. Now he's coaching in college very successfully. It's natural for people who have that connection with him and has seen the entirety of his career to this point. He's had success everywhere he's gone to think that, okay, if he's a coach in the NFL, which again, he was the guy calling signals on defense when he was in the NFL. It's natural to think that that success would naturally follow. But regardless of how familiar you may be with his play, regardless of how familiar you may be with his work as a coach in college, that does not always translate to the NFL. Yes, he played in the NFL successfully for a long time. Yes, I have no doubt he understands NFL defenses. You have to if you're going to be a guy calling the signals for your team and to play as long as he played. But I think people are screaming for him because that is the name hire. You know how all these coaching cycles go on and there's that name that people don't necessarily even look at the work that person may have done. They just look at the name. It is a name brand. And because it's a name brand, it's got to be great. Again, I'm not saying Jim Leonhard is not going to be a good football coach in the NFL. I think eventually he will end up going to the NFL. And if he doesn't, he's definitely going to be somebody's college head coach. Whether it's at Wisconsin, whether it's elsewhere, I don't know. But this guy is destined to be a head coach. He just has that sense about him. He just has that preparation about him. He walks it, he talks it. I think he's going to be a head coach somewhere. Is that step in that direction to be a defensive coordinator in the NFL? I don't know, but I think that's the name that everybody's trying to stick with. All these guys on the list have put in really good work. And whoever lands this position is coming in to it with a ton of talent on that Packers defense. This is a good football team and a good defensive football team. Now, part of me would have loved to see what Mike Pettin would have done with this defense in year 3 of the Matt LaFleur era. I would have loved to see who took that next leap. Would Gary take that next leap? How much better could Jair be? I mean, the guy's pretty much locked down. They don't even test him on his side of the field. Whoever you got over there, you just might as well set it and forget it because they're not even going to be a factor. Does Savage take that next step? Does Adrian Amos keep ascending? Does he get Preston Smith back to that first year on the Packers? How much better does Zadarius Smith get? How much better does Kenny Clark get? Those good young linebackers, how much better do they get within this system? Because now they're going to be in a new system. And that is another question. Do they stick with this 3-4 base? Do they go to a 4-3 set? It worries you a little bit. Yes, you have a lot of good defensive talent, but now they're going to be playing in a completely different system, which people are going to have to practice patience with. But I would have loved to see what Mike Pettin did year 3 in the Matt LaFleur era. Now, I know there's going to be some people out there who don't agree. And I'm not saying that, Pettin should come back. I've said multiple times on Twitter at D20Double, on the Toss Facebook page, that multiple times Matt LaFleur has come out and said, well, in certain situations, like, and I forget the game, so forgive me, but I remember him coming out saying, well, and I'm paraphrasing. He's basically telling Mike Pettin, well, I wish we could, come up and pressure a little bit more or play up a little bit more, soften that cushion a little bit on third down situations, because it was a game in which they were giving up too many third downs. And it was a habit of Mike Pettin. He always played off on receivers on third down when you cannot afford to do that, especially on third and short. But he did it, and they gave up first downs in critical situations. Tampa was a big example of that. Pretty much cost you a game. People look at that NFC Championship game and pretty much indict Mike Pettin as a terrible coach. And he's not a terrible coach. Mike Pettin is a good defensive coach, regardless of how you feel about him. Regardless of how you feel about him after that NFC Championship game, the guy can coach football. He got this unit into a top 10 ranking, number 9 overall. You don't just luck into that. And you just don't talent your way into that. You can have all the talent in the world and still suck. That's the reality of it. I appreciate Mike Pettin for what he did. I would have loved to see if he would got another year, if those guys would have took an even bigger jump. How much better could this defense have been? Could they have increased that number 9 ranking up to a top 5? Who knows? We'll never know at this point. Now you're searching for another defensive coordinator, and we'll see what they can come up with. We'll see how they'll deploy these guys and if this defense continue their ascension. But there's going to be a little bit of a learning curve. There's going to be some patience needed by everybody because this is going to be a new defense that comes in. It's going to be a new voice that comes in. Guys are going to have to get acclimated to it. So we'll definitely keep our eye on this. It's a big piece of the puzzle, big piece to a championship puzzle, you hope. Packers in search of a new defensive coordinator. That's pretty big, and we'll keep our eyes on it. Continuing here on Toss, State of the State, let's talk the Milwaukee Bucks. What are they up to? Now, I'm not quite at that point. It's only been 20 ball games. Remember the rule. 25, 30 ball games, you can really talk about the type of team this squad is going to be. We're at 20 ball games after Monday's game. And we'll get to that game in a little bit. Currently, Bucks 12-8, second in the Eastern Conference currently. I believe it took them 50. I want to say it took them 50. It was 54 games before they got their 8th loss last season. So they definitely got a lot quicker this season. But again, roster overturn. But really playing with some things defensively and offensively. A lot of new pieces, as I said. It's going to be some patience needed. But let's talk about their games last week. They went 2-2 last week. It was really an up and down week. 1-2 ball games. A little modest, a couple of wins last week. One against the Raptors. The Raptors fans were just really talking major trash on Twitter. It was just an ugly place for them. They're not doing so hot right now either. But then after that Raptors win, you proceeded to lose back-to-back games to go 2-2 that week. You lost back-to-back games, and they were on consecutive nights. You played a ball brother on each one of those nights, and both of them ended up putting up 27 points, which is a career high for both of them. They hit multiple threes. The Pelicans and the Hornets you lost to. And in those two games, both of them losses, you allowed 42 three-pointers made combined in both of those games. 21 apiece to both the Pelicans and the Hornets. That is a season high for both ball clubs. Now, I said on the Toss Facebook page, I had my little emoji with my eyebrow raised, which is something I do in real life. If you know me and if you've seen any of my videos, you know that the eyebrow raise is a real deal. Dwayne Johnson ain't the only one out there with the people's eyebrow. My eyebrow was raised because, look, and Giannis said it this week. If a team's going to make a season high in threes, you have to live with it. And although a part of me knows that to be true, because how many times is a team going to hit a season high in three-pointers made or a franchise high in three-pointers made against you? The three-point shot is still the hardest shot to make. The lowest amount of probability. But the thing is, this is such a high-volume three-point shooting league now. There are a lot of guys who are learning to shoot that shot and getting better at making that shot because that is how the game is played now. You're not going to make it in the league unless you're able to hit that shot. Or unless you're a freakish athlete like Giannis, who, you know, is pretty much the reincarnation of Shaq with more athleticism. A part of me knows that every team that goes up against the Milwaukee Bucks is not going to make a franchise high or season high against them in threes to win the ball game. But for it to happen in back-to-back games, for you to see them giving up double-digit three-point baskets made night after night after night, knowing that they do not care about the three-point line. It's all about that drop defense, clogging the lane so you don't get any easy baskets. It frustrates you. And the thing is, in those two games, they really weren't stopping anything. Now, in that Pelicans game, which was nationally televised on ESPN, they fought hard. And I wrote about that. They fought hard. I appreciate the fight that they showed to come back from a 23-point deficit at the half. I felt the team was coming together. But then you go the next night and you give up 21 threes again. You let the rookie LaMelo get 27 on you, hit multiple threes. It's a career high for him. It's maddening at this point in the season. But again, you have to remind yourself it's still early. Guys are still learning each other. Guys are still getting healthy. Torrey Craig is now being inserted finally into that rotation. You're starting to see him play a little bit more each and every game, seeing what he brings to the table defensively. This is a good thing. Mike Budenholzer is still playing around with lineups. Starting lineups already set. But who's coming off that bench? Who's going to provide the most punch off that bench? What is the best unit that's going to work the best together to not only keep our lead that we've built with our starters, but increase that lead so when the starters come in, they increase it even further, and maybe they can just sit down and not have to play in the fourth quarter, which is exactly what happened Monday night against the Blazers. Giannis played very, very light minutes, and that was a 134-106 win, by the way. That was a game where both ends were working. Bucks hit 21 threes themselves, shot 50% overall, 21 of 42 from three. They had 10 steals. They had 7 blocks. This defense was all over the Blazers. Drew Holiday all over the place, defensively and offensively. As I mentioned before, it was a light work display for Giannis. He had 18 points, but he played less than 25 minutes. He didn't need to play that much. It was a blowout. It was straight domination on both ends of the court. That is what the Bucks can be. That game right there, that the fight that they showed in that comeback attempt against New Orleans on Friday, and the utter domination they showed on Monday against the Blazers, that is what the Bucks can be. But they had to find consistency. They have to gel. And it's only been 20 ball games, folks. You have to exercise patience. There's calls for everybody to fire Mike Budenholzer. And I can understand the frustration. But what I'm not going to be willing to agree with is firing Mike Budenholzer right now. This is year 3. You have to allow him time to get a roster that's been overturned and during the shortest offseason in NBA history, the shortest preseason, 0 games in NBA history, the shortest training camp in NBA history. Again, a whole roster overturn. You have to allow this team time. You have to allow Mike Budenholzer time to figure out what works and what doesn't. He needs that time. And 20 games is not going to be a sufficient amount of time. Y'all know the rules. 25 games, maybe. 30 games, definitely. You're almost halfway through the season at that point. But 20 games is not enough, especially when you had no preseason, no real on-court in-game action with each other to see what works, what doesn't, what your units are going to be, what your rotations are going to be. You all have to give it time. You got to give it time. If you don't give it time, you're only going to make yourself crazy. You're only going to stress yourself out. This is still a work in progress. It's still a work in progress. You have to be able to give this time. It's not going to get any better because you're impatient. It's only going to get better when Mike Budenholzer figures out what works and what doesn't. It's only going to work when these players get more time to play with each other. And it needs to be consistent. And that's where that phrase comes in. That's why they play the games. It's still a work in progress. 12-8. Second in the Eastern Conference currently. And you're really calling to fire your coach. Really? Stop it. Still a work in progress. Let them work. And that's the state of the state. The Packers are in need of a new defensive coordinator after not renewing Mike Pettine's contract. They got a whole bevy of interviews over the next couple of days. Whoever they get is coming in with a bevy of talent on that Packers defense, but will they be able to coach him up? And the Milwaukee Bucks, second in the Eastern Conference, did not have a proper training camp, did not have a proper offseason, did not have a proper preseason, and are still 12-8 and number 2 in the Eastern Conference despite being a work in progress. Let's run the toss sweep. Toss Sweep, brought to you by the good folks over at tossnationmedia.com. Toss Nation Media, truthful, opinionated, passionate, sports. It's what you deserve. Y'all, we got to talk about Super Bowl 55. We have to do it. We got to do it because if we don't, We'll be accused of being haters and non-supporters. And how can you guys be a media source for sports if you guys don't talk about one of the biggest games in the world and yada, yada, yada? Look, I'm going to tell you like this. Even as a sports personality, and don't let any sports personality tell you any different. If they tell you that they don't, they're lying to you. But all of us have a team that we root for. We all do. Now, we have the ability, or at least most of us do, to not slant our feelings towards the team that we may love and support. Now, I love the Green Bay Packers. There is no mistaking that. I don't hide that. But you guys also know what our brand rules are. Truthful, opinionated, and passionate. So although I may be opinionated and passionate about the Green Bay Packers, I am always truthful. So if I think they're going to lose a game, I'm going to come out and tell you they're going to lose this game. And I'm going to be truthful with my reasons as to why I think they're going to lose the game. If I think they're going to win a game, then I'm going to tell you, hey, they're going to win this game. And I'll be truthful about that. So let me be truthful about the Super Bowl situation. It is hard for me to even think about Super Bowl 55. A part of me is very excited because it is the Super Bowl. There's no bigger stage in football. But then you have the team that beat you on your own home turf playing for the Lombardi Trophy. So, yeah, it's still a little bit raw. You're still a little sour about it. I mean, they're a good team. You got beat by a good team, but, man, that was still a heartbreaking fashion in which you lost. So, yeah, it's a little bit raw. But we're going to talk about it anyway. Super Bowl 55 going down this Sunday. Buccaneers, Chiefs, Tampa Bay, Kansas City. The Buccaneers, we know about who is the trigger man there. We know it's Tom Brady. We know Bruce Arians is an aired out top type coach. That he's got the perfect name for it, Arians. You've seen their connection flourish over the season. Now, remember early on in the season, Tom Brady was kind of struggling with that kind of throw it down the field, stretch the field type of offense. And it's not that he couldn't throw the deep ball. It's just that you're talking about, 20 or so years in New England where it was kind of dink and dunk, lull the defense to sleep, then take your deep shot. But they were very judicious in doing so. Never got outside their game plan to try and win a ball game. And now you go to a Bruce Arians system where we're going to throw it all over the yard. We're going to stretch the field. We're going to be able to run the football, but none of this dink and dunk stuff. I mean, we'll do it if we have to, but I'm trying to, get this over with quick. We're trying to put points up on the board, make it a little bit easier for our defense. And they've got a good defense, a fast defense. Those linebackers, man, like I said, they gave the Packers fits. Anytime the Packers run up against a team with some really fast linebackers, it just gives them fits. The Chiefs, the defending champs, back in the Super Bowl. A couple weeks for Patrick Mahomes to get healthy. He's coming off that concussion, played an AFC Championship game, also had that foot injury. A couple of weeks to clear the bells and let the foot heal a little bit, get a little bit healthier than what he was in the AFC Championship game. Great offense. I mean, you can name everybody on that offense from Mahomes to Kelsey to Hill, to Bell, to Edwards-Helaire. I mean, they got guys up and down that line, and they have a decent defense. I wouldn't put it on the same par as as Tampa Bay's defense. I would say Tampa Bay definitely has the better defense out of these two. The big question for me in determining the winner of this game will be, will Kansas City's offensive speed be able to offset Tampa Bay's defensive speed? You got Tyreek Hill. You know they're going to be paying special attention to those guys. And just because now Tyreek Hill may be the exception here. Because if you have a fast guy, but you also have fast linebackers. But typically, a fast linebacker and a fast wide receiver, that's not always an advantage to the receiver. But Tyreek Hill just has several extra gears that no wide receiver that I can recall has in the NFL. Now, that's speed on top of speed. That is special speed Tyreek Hill possesses, and his acceleration. The ability to shift gears at a drop of a dime. I mean, it's nuts watching him play. Will that speed be able to offset Tampa Bay's speed? Because remember, in the NFC Championship game, the Packers had their most success when they went up tempo, when they were getting the ball out very, very quickly. Now, they didn't necessarily have a bunch of fast guys on the field. Devontae Adams has some speed. MVS has some speed. But those guys don't have the speed that Kansas City has. It is a complete and utter difference between Kansas City speed and Green Bay speed. So you talk about a completely different level in which Tampa Bay is going to have to deal with. I went back and forth about this decision, and I'm still not even 100% entirely sure on it. So my prediction will be a very shaky one. I would suggest that nobody go and bet based on my decision. Please don't do that. I don't want to lose you any money. I think enough people have done that in the stock market this week. But if I had to pick, and this is tough. You talk about Tom Brady. The man's got 6 rings. But you talk about the defending champions. They've been there too. Maybe not to the 6 times that Brady has, but they've been there too. I've got to go with Kansas City. Just because of that question I had before. Will Kansas City's speed be able to offset the defensive speed of Tampa Bay, those linebackers? I think they can. I think Mahomes will be able to get the ball out quickly. They don't necessarily have to run a bunch of deep routes. They can take a little short route, especially with Tyreek Hill, and he can make something out of it. They have to keep they have to keep tempo up, get the ball out quickly. They can neutralize the speed of the Tampa Bay defense, and they can put up enough points against those guys to do it. So I got to pick them. I have to go with Kansas City over the Buccaneers, Tampa Bay, and Super Bowl 55. I got to do it. I got to do it. Again, don't bet based on my prediction. Please don't. That's just my prediction. Kansas City defends their crown. They win Super Bowl 55 this Sunday. Let's go to some predictions. More predictions, I should say. And this time, this isn't from me. This would be from Bleacher Report. Now, Bleacher Report put out their predictive article on what NFL free agency is going to look like. And there are some pretty interesting moves in here that I wouldn't entirely shrug at. That wouldn't entirely just kind of brush off and say, okay, that ain't happening. Let's run through these really quick. First off, the Jets signed Allen Robinson of the Chicago Bears. You know, it depends on what they do at quarterback. They got a new coach. Will they have a new quarterback there? A lot to be decided still with the Jets. The Cowboys franchise tag Dak Prescott. Again, I have no doubts that's going to happen, and it shouldn't. Your season absolutely tanked after losing Dak Prescott. I think he has more than proven his worth with him being on the field and with him being off of the field. Give that man his money, and I don't mean in a franchise tag. Sign that man, give him the money that he damn well earned. This is one I have absolutely no faith in happening. The Broncos released Von Miller. I don't foresee that happening. I don't think it's going to happen. No. Nope. No. The Ravens signed Kenny Galladay, please. Get him out of the NFC North, although the Lions no longer have Matthew Stafford. They have Jared Goff. That was a big trade that happened this week. Did not see that one coming. Goff, he could put the ball up, but he's no Matthew Stafford. He loses Galladay. You got Marvin Jones, but then who else you got? You really don't have much else anybody. The Texans part with J.J. Watt. There's a lot of reports out there that are saying that J.J. Watt has played his last game as a Houston Texan, and I don't blame him. The same way that they failed Deshaun Watson, and the reason why he wants out, they failed J.J. Watt. The Texans have themselves to blame. You let Bill O'Brien F everything up. The Raiders signed Nelson Aguilar to a long-term deal. It could happen. Could happen. I don't have a feeling about that one way or the other. The Saints re-signed Jameis Winston. I fully believe that happens. If it is true, and it does end up happening, that Drew Brees does in fact retire, they're going to put Taysom Hill as a starting quarterback. He started 4 games. I believe he went 3-1. Jameis Winston did see some duty, played pretty well. Have that guy as a backup, but I still believe he has, if under the tutelage of someone, he has the ability to be a starter. If you can get him to cut those turnovers down, he has the ability to be a starter and a good starter in this league. I truly believe that. The Washington football team signs Cam Newton. Man, I don't know about this one. Yeah, Cam is available. He's more than likely going to be moving on from the New England Patriots. And also another report about Matthew Stafford. They said he'd be traded to anybody except New England. That kind of just makes me chuckle. Nobody wants to play for Belichick. Cam Newton back with Ron Rivera. I don't know. I don't know. That one intrigues me. I just don't know if that one happens. And last, the Steelers let both Bud Dupree and Juju Smith-Schuster go. Now, a lot was been made about Juju's TikToks, and people were feeling that Bud Dupree's best days are behind him. I don't necessarily think that Bud Dupree's best days are behind him, but yeah. I don't know if they let both of them go. I think one of them does go for sure, though. And my guess, it will probably be Juju. And I love Juju. But if you notice his play, ever since Antonio Brown has been gone, he really hasn't been the same. And the thing is, he still has all the talent in the world, but he just hasn't been the same. You have guys like Chase Claypool and DeAndre Washington coming in and being those guys, those receivers that are productive. Like I said, Juju has all the talent in the world, man, but I don't know if it's if he just needs to change the scenery or what, but he's a good kid, good football player, better than what he's shown. He'll get it back on track. But that one, I might believe one of them goes. I don't think both of them go. But it's the NFL. Nobody ever really knows. Anything can happen, especially on the business side. It is just so hard to predict. So hard to predict. I can tell you with 1,000% certainty that that list has some fallacies in it. Some of it will not happen, but it's kind of fun to look at, okay, who's going to be a free agent? Where could they possibly go? Does that scenario make sense? We're not quite at offseason yet. Still got the Super Bowl on Sunday. And again, the Chiefs will beat the Buccaneers in Super Bowl 55. Well, y'all, that'll do it for me. This was episode 68 of Toss, Tristain on Sports Show. Y'all know where to find me on social media. At the20double on Twitter and Instagram. That's at the number 2, the number 0, and the word double. Facebook.com/T on Sports Show. That's TON Sports Show. We touch on a lot of things there that we don't get a chance to on the show. That's Facebook.com/T on Sports Show. That's TON Sports Show. And of course, TossNationMedia.com, your home for the Toss brand of sports. Truthful, opinionated, passionate sports. It's what you deserve. But as I said before, it's time for me to get on up out of here. This is T-Squared, Tristain Thomas, reminding all of you to keep it moving forward. Always forward. Forward always. Until next week. So long from Toss.